Welcome back to Proline TV as we talk some college hoops. And it's not even March yet. That's okay. It's just around the corner. Just another week to go, actually, before the end of the month. And Jim, then March comes. And once we get to March 1st, I believe that's when I'll have to check the exact dates, but I believe we might have like that first college basketball conference tournament action starting.
Well, I'm pretty excited right now. I mean, things have gone pretty good last couple of weeks, and I think what's happened is we had a lot of contracts and stuff, money and all that, and then the portal and new players coming into teams and the chemistry not working out right away for a lot of them. But now, after we've gone through all these games, some of these teams have played 20, 25, 27 games. The chemistry has started to gel for some of them, and we're starting to see some consistency, which is the part that we've missed. Yeah, they played good games and bad games, but you couldn't put your foot on it and really. And of course, we lost all the old rivalries and stuff. A lot of that's gone. I mean, the Big Ten's now the Big 18, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well,
but now we're starting to get a little consistency.
Well, early in the season, you had a lot of those tournaments, and they're fun for us as the fans, but it's like teams are like night and day for how they played in November and December and how they're playing now. It's amazing how you get some of these teams that just, wow, I can't believe they played or they beat those teams in those tournaments, and they're not even like tournament teams now. It's amazing how much a team can change, as you said, from early in the season to late in the season.
It took time for some of these coaches to blend these teams together, and in some cases they just fell apart. So the ones that fell apart, you're not going to see very much of going forward. But the ones that started to blend together, and then you have situations where, like for example, one of the games we're going to talk about, Oregon going to Wisconsin. Well, Oregon never went to Wisconsin before. So it's a whole new trip. You're going to a different part of the country. You're going to a stadium, a venue that you've never been to before. So a lot of this is not factored in to the number. And of course, the inconsistency of teams in different parts of the country with different venues and other players that have come in, like you were 5 guys last year with 3 or 4 coming off the bench. Now you got people that were never there before, and you're starting to blend together. The coaching, the really good coaching, has started to get these teams to blend, and that's what we're starting to see.
Yeah. By the way, the first official 2025 college basketball tournament conference tournament will begin on March the 2nd, and that will be the Atlantic Sun. So the Atlantic Sun kicks it off March 2nd. That is only 9 days away, I believe, from today.
Not very far.
Nope. And then that week, you got a bunch of other tournaments that get started as well. You still have to wait a couple of weeks after that for the big ones, because that's the thing. You get these really big tournaments, and then that's it. Like the next day, they're coming up with brackets, and everything gets started. So we've got some big games again coming up on the show today. We just mentioned, we start with Oregon and Wisconsin. Wisconsin's an 8.5-point favorite. They're a much better spread team than Oregon, and they are playing their best basketball of the season. Don't forget, last week we took Wisconsin against Purdue, and not only did they cover, they won the game outright, and they're smoking. They have won their last 4 games all in double digits by a combined 54 points.
Well, okay. They've covered 7 out of their last 8 games, which, I mean, they've been absolutely remarkable. Then you can go back further. I mean, they just don't have. They have a couple holes here and there where they lost at Maryland, but and they lost. They didn't cover against Ohio State, but they won the game. They lost at UCLA, taking 3.5. They covered that game. I mean, they just have been a covering machine and a winning machine, playing great basketball. I mean, I put numbers on all these games, game ratings. Their last two games, one on the road and one at home, they had 107.8 in game ratings, which is big. The problem is here, you're starting to pay a tax for them because of the price.
Yep.
Yeah, you could make them an 8-point favorite. That's a legitimate number. When you got Oregon coming out of the West, who lost 5 straight games, and then they beat Northwestern and Rutgers and Iowa. Iowa was a road game, and that was just a couple days ago.
Yeah, and that was also overtime, I believe, or did that go down to the wire? I know that was a really close game.
I don't have that marked down. I might not have the right information. I don't know if it was an overtime or not. I will tell you this.
No, it wasn't overtime.
It was?
It wasn't. No overtime.
Okay.
And this is one of those teams that had a really good tournament. They won the tournament, don't forget, earlier this year, beating Alabama, Texas A&M, and San Diego State. So they got off to a great start, Oregon did. They started 9-0. Everything looked great. And then, like you said, they had a pretty good season up until that 5-game stretch where they lost all those games, even though a few of them were close games. But now they're right back playing good ball again. So
let's talk about those games. They won at Ohio State and they won at Penn State, and then they had a couple home games. They split that, lost to Purdue and beat Washington. But Washington is kind of a normal team for them to play.
Yeah.
Then they lost at Minnesota and at UCLA.
Yeah, the Minnesota loss was a bad loss.
Yeah, because they were favored in that game, didn't even win the game. Then they beat Nebraska. They lost to Nebraska at home. This is a whole bad stretch for them. Then they went to Michigan, lost by 4. They covered. They lost by 8 at Michigan State. They lost by 12 at Michigan State. Did not cover. And then they came back with the 3 wins recently: Northwestern, Rutgers, and Iowa. None of those teams are extremely good.
No tournament teams there.
No. Now they're going to go up against the monster here. And the way this team is playing, you could easily make this game. You could make this game. You easily can make this game legitimately double figures.
Sure. Well, like I said, they've won their last 4, all by double digits.
When you look at the road ratings, look at road ratings for this team, Oregon. The last one, I'll go in reverse order: 84, 82, 86, 70, and 64. Then you look at the other team, and they were all road ratings. Then you look at the other team's home ratings: 107, 93, 104. And I mean, you're talking about smoking. This team is smoking. I don't feel comfortable laying this number of points, but that's probably the only thing I could do with it. I could legitimately say that this team, if you made the team 10 or 11, you'll get a lot of people even laying 10 or 11 with them. But I don't know what the sharps are going to do with it, and the sharps will determine where the line settles. But in the last 8 games, they've covered. You got an 80 versus 97 rating. In the last 4 games, you got an 87 versus 100 rating. 19 points road and home ratings recently. It's all about recent form, because you can't look at these teams or what they did back in November and December and January.
No.
They're not those teams anymore. And Wisconsin right now is arguably the hottest team in the country.
Yeah, well, I would I think it's one of those games where if you're going to take it, you take Wisconsin. But hey, if you don't want to take it, don't take it. That's fine, because it is a lot of points. But I definitely think that Wisconsin, like you, it's got to be the play if you're going to take the
If
game.
I was watching this game and Oregon took off and it got off, like they say, let's say you're up 12-6, and you see a slight adjustment in game stuff, I'd be all over Wisconsin because you will see some, but the bookmakers are smart now. They don't make the live adjustments that big anymore in the beginning because they know what people are going to do. They're going to take this team that's a big favorite that takes off a little slow, and people are come in and start banging. Instead of laying 8.5, they're going to be laying 6.5, and people are
Well,
just going to get all over it.
I'll tell you right now, that is a show and maybe even a series of shows that we will touch up on one day, and that is the whole way in which professional gamblers how they how they what their strategy is with live betting and how they do it, uh, and we can show them examples, maybe lay it out for them because it is just an unbelievable science that they have and an expertise to it that is just amazing. And it would be something to see if we could outline it for everybody on video and show them how it's done. It's just amazing. So we'll definitely figure out a time to do that.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the SEC, and we've got Tennessee and Texas A&M. And at this point in the season, you have two tournament teams that not really sure exactly what they're playing for at this point, other than seedings in the tournament. Tennessee's won 4-5. Aggies have won 7 out of 9. The Aggies actually upset Tennessee in this very situation last year at home. They were a 2-point home dog last year, and they beat Tennessee by 16. So they're looking to do the same thing here as a 1-point home dog. But this is a very tough game to handicap. I'm not even sure this is a game that I'd like to touch other than watch.
Well, the question I ask you is, and you actually brought it up in your opening on this, is what are they playing for?
Yeah.
I mean, one is 21-5, the other is 19-6. Got to think they're going into the tournament. That's what they're looking forward to that. When did the SEC tournament start?
That's one of those tournaments that we're not going to see for a little bit. That won't start until March 12th.
Well, it's not that far away, but it's 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the later ones. So,
well, if you look at Texas A&M, they just beat Vanderbilt, did not cover. They're not a covering machine. They've recently, but they beat Missouri, which Missouri, very tough team. They did not cover that either. They beat Florida by 20. Beating Florida by 20 that's a hell of a game. They lost to Kentucky.
You talking about Tennessee?
I'm talking about Texas A&M.
Oh, okay.
They lost to Kentucky at home. I'm just looking at their home games because this is a home game. And they lost. They were favored by 10. They lost by 5. So that was a big, very bad game. They beat Mississippi State. They beat Georgia. They don't lose much at home. Let's just put it that way. And Tennessee's coming in. Oh, excuse me. I'm looking at the wrong team. I got it. I'm sorry. I got it all backwards.
So you are looking at Tennessee.
Yeah, I was looking at Tennessee in their home game, and they're not at home. Let's look at Texas A&M at home. They have won 5 of the last 6, but they just lost 6 by 16 on the road to Mississippi State, which is a very bad game. I give them a 66 rating on that game. It's horrible game. But they're basically at home. They're very consistently an 88, 89, 87 rated team at home.
Well, they're 12-1.
Yeah. Now, Tennessee, on the other hand, they had a bad game at Kentucky. They lost by 11. They beat Oklahoma, which is not a very good team. They beat Vanderbilt at home, did not cover. They've not covered 3 of their last 4 games. But their road games, I could see Texas A&M sneaking this one out. I could see that possibly they could sneak this one out because
Well, again, I think
I don't think either team right now is playing at their peak. Now, I will say this about A&M and both teams, over and under. Texas A&M has gone under 17 of their 25 games. They're 8-17, 8 overs, 17 unders. And we need Victor for this because he does this stuff. I don't. And Tennessee has gone over 10 times, under 16 times. So I mean, you might be looking at that as a possible play. A&M has covered 9 of their 12 games at home. Tough, hard-fought game.
Well, like I said on the outset, this is just you can't bet this game. I mean, I hear you. I think if you're going to take the game, you go with A&M. They're the home team, but
or maybe you play it under.
This is too tough of a game. I mean, it's just these are 2 good teams, and there's no psychological edge that we can see either way. So. Yeah, I don't see anything, no trends, nothing that says that you have to take this team over the other. Correct. All right, let's stay in the SEC because there's a game at 1:00. We got Mississippi State at Oklahoma, and Mississippi State is right now about 1.5. And boy, is Oklahoma just played awful lately. This is one of those teams that I mentioned at the outset that you could say, look at the difference between Oklahoma at the beginning of the year to the end of the year, because just look at their schedule. They had one of those early tournament runs. They beat Providence, then they beat Arizona, and then they beat Louisville. So they beat 2 tourney teams. They win the championship of this tournament here in Atlantis, and they start the season 13-0. Look at that. But that also means they have a Michigan win. They even beat Michigan. So everything is going beautifully for Oklahoma. And then what happens? They got to go to the SEC. And in the SEC, they've won 3 games since then. And they've lost 5 straight up and against the spread, including 4 of those games by 18 or more. They've lost by 22, 24, and 28 points. And Mississippi State, meanwhile, has won 3 out of 4, including back-to-back double-digit wins, beating 2 tourney teams by double digits, Ole Miss and Texas A&M. I mean, now we've got a game where I clearly can say, yes, I'm taking Mississippi State 1.5. The only thing Oklahoma's got going for them, like, edge-wise, is they're desperate for the win. They have to start winning some games or else they're not going to make the tournament. But other than that, they're playing so awful right now. I don't think that's going to matter to me right now.
Oklahoma's dog meat right now. Sorry. If Mississippi State blows this game against this team that's playing like this, I mean, they are so far off. I mean, okay, just talk about ratings. I mean, they're so far off from what they were. This is like a whole different team.
Yep.
No, you can't. I can't look at this team. If I just look at the last 8 games, they're just, this is a Mississippi State play or no play at all.
All right. I totally agree. I don't even look at it that way. I look at it as take Mississippi State. So don't not play it. Take Mississippi State. All right. Let's stay in the SEC at 3:30. Now we got an important game for Vanderbilt. Ole Miss is a 1-point road favorite at Vandy, and Vandy is one of those kind of bubble teams that can definitely they need this win, no question. Right now, you look at I think they're in today, but I haven't looked at the latest. but there's 17-9 team in the SEC. I think that gets you in today. And they're 10th overall, and I do believe we're getting more than 10 teams in the SEC in the tournament. But they're going through a rough stretch. They've only won 1 out of their last 6. They've lost 3 straight, 5 of those 6. They got blown out of Kentucky in their last matchup. They've had, I mean, the Auburn game was close until late. They had a tough home loss to Auburn, and then they followed that up with a very tough. They had a big lead against Tennessee in the first half on the road, and let Tennessee come back, and they lost that game by 5. And maybe predictably, the very next game on the road, they had nothing. So now they're back at home, and in an important game against an Ole Miss team that is just 6-1 against the spread in their last 8, even though they have won 4 of their last 6.
And Vanderbilt's lost on the court 5 out of the last 6 games.
Yep.
I mean, this is a. What's the line on this? What do you?
Ole Miss won.
Yeah, this is a pass for me. I can't play this.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Vandy again. I think they're this is a huge game for them, and they've got some tough ones here. They're going to be at Texas A&M. That's probably not a good one for them to win. And they got Missouri and Arkansas at home, and so they've got some winnable. They got games that they can win and help their stock. So that's why going to be very important for them to start chipping away here. All right, let's move on, and let's see if we've got another SEC game before we move on. Yep, we've got a 6:00 game between Kentucky and Alabama. Alabama's an 8.5-point favorite. And the big news here is that Kentucky looks like they're going to be without 2 of their top contributors, the kid Butler and Robinson. Butler's missed the last 2. Robinson's missed the last 3. But Kentucky 3-1 straight up and 4-0 against the spread in the last 4. So they're still playing good ball without 2 of their scorers. And I'm actually going to stick with Alabama in here Kentucky here, because Alabama, they've lost 2 straight, so they're obviously not on top of their game. They've already beaten Kentucky. They beat them last month. So I could look at this game for Kentucky as, and the reason I'm doing it is because you look at their season. They have 5 upset wins on their ledger already. They've upset Tennessee twice. They upset Mississippi State. They upset Gonzaga, and they upset Duke. So this is a team that's had these upsets before, and they're catching Alabama maybe at a good time, and it's 8.5 points, a lot of points. So I'm going to go ahead and take the points there.
It's a ridiculous line. There's absolutely no way you can pass up taking 8.5 with Kentucky. If that's the number, if you can get 8.5, you have to play it.
Okay, so we're in agreement there. And I believe we have one more from the SEC. And that's Missouri at Arkansas. And there is probably no hotter team in the country right now than Missouri. But most, a lot of that has been at home. Doesn't matter. They've had a great season. And they, right now, if you look at them, they have won 3 straight. They're coming off that major win against Alabama. They've covered 6 out of 7. Arkansas, meanwhile, see, here we go again. We got another team that is desperate for a measuring stick win. And this Arkansas team, I believe this Arkansas team is talented enough to be a tournament team. But they've got to get a couple of more big wins. And I could see them doing it. I mean, he went wire to wire. We liked that game a couple of days ago. And I know you picked Arkansas getting 16 at Auburn. They almost won that game. And they're 3-3 straight up, 5-1 ATS last 6. But all 3 of those losses were by 8 points or less. So they've been in all of these games. Matter of fact, they've lost 8 games this year by 8 points or less. So that's why I said this is a good team, but they got to get a couple of more of these types of wins. And so I'm going to go ahead, and even though Missouri's red hot, maybe a little bit of hangover after that Alabama win. So I'm going to go and take Arkansas in this game, getting 1 as a home dog.
What's the spread? I missed it. I got interfered. 1. Missouri's the better team, playing better ball, but it's a tough spot. I mean, this Arkansas team is not terrible. They are capable of upsetting this team. But I'm going to tell you, this Missouri team has been very, very. Their numbers. I put numbers on every game. Their numbers have been outstanding. Um, they've covered at Georgia. They covered at Tennessee. They covered at Mississippi State. They covered at Florida. They covered at Auburn. I mean, they they've covered every game on the road, every game. But that doesn't mean they're favored in every game, and they're not in this spot in every game. That's not exactly apples versus. They're much higher rated team right now. Road performances versus home performances in this game. Missouri's the better team. It is more desperation for Arkansas. I mean, they are only 15-11.
Yep.
And they've lost their last two games. They lost to Texas A&M. They pushed the number with their +8. They lost by 8. They lost at Auburn, getting 16. They lost by 7. The one thing they are doing, though, they are playing good defense. They do play good defense. They're holding down their opponent. So the pace of the game, the tempo of the game could make a difference. Not a game that, because of the desperation issue, I probably would look at this game under, because I'm a little afraid that Arkansas might be in such a situation that they're going to press this game and walk away with it. But I'm not going to take it. It's not enough points for me to take, because Missouri is the better team. And I would actually if I took three, I would take 3, but not 1. And basketball is a numbers game. You are dealing with numbers here. But I would look at the under. Otherwise, I wouldn't play.
Yeah, well, it was 2.5 a couple hours ago. It's gone down to 1. So
yeah, it was right. Yeah, it was the right move.
We'll see if it bounces back at all. But again, Arkansas needs resume wins. They've got 2 more chances. Saturday against Missouri.
Needing to win doesn't mean you will win.
Well, you know? I know that.
No.
Well, again, we talk about teams that need to be motivated, and they're motivated.
I'm betting it under. If they're 9-17, they're 9 over 17 unders on the season, and they're in pressure situation, but they are playing good defense. I'm taking the under in this game. I like that as a bet.
Okay. Next, let's go to the Big 12, where we'll start at the 1:00 game. Let's move up. Let's take a look at the standings here of the Big 12. There we go. We've got West Virginia and Texas Tech. And similar to Kentucky, West Virginia has pulled off a lot of upsets this year. They've had 6 outright upsets, including, and we'll check out what they did earlier this year, because this is another team that had a really nice run at one of those tournaments early in the season. And I think they had 2 out of those 3 were upset that year, during that tournament. As you can see here, they upset. Look, all 3 of those games went to overtime. They upset Gonzaga. They lost to Louisville in overtime, and we're getting points there. And they didn't, but go to overtime, they didn't get the cover. And then they followed that up with an upset of Arizona, also in overtime. And then they wind up with several more upsets along the way. So they had, matter of fact, they were a 15-point dog against Gonzaga in that win, and a 6-point dog against Arizona in that win. Meanwhile, they've also upset Kansas as a 13-point dog and Iowa State as a 6-point dog. And they've been doing all this without one of their top players. Tucker DeVries came over from the Missouri Valley. It was a nice little coup for them in the transfer portal. He's been out. He was with them for the tournament that they had such a great tournament. And then one game later, injured, out for the year. But West Virginia is playing good defense this year, and that's the reason why they've been hanging around and playing decent ball. But again, like Arkansas, they're this is must win territory or must cover territory, at least, meaning they're going to play their hearts out. Texas Tech has nothing to play for. They're the better team. They're at home. They're an 11.5-point favorite, but they're playing for nothing. Let's take a look at, again, the standings, see where they are. They are 3 full games behind Houston, so they're not catching Houston. So, again, this is just for Texas Tech. This is just all about seeding. So, look, I'm going to roll the dice not only with West Virginia getting 12, but this is one of those games where I'll throw a few bucks on the money line. They've done it before several times. They need the win, and at least I know I'm going to have a team motivated for a W, and that's good enough for me. What do you think about this game?
Well, it's a number play for me. It's a number play. I can make this game 9.5. I'm going to take the 12 just because of the number. It's really, I can't make much of an argument. West Virginia's their last 8 games, they played a little bit under what their season record is. And Texas Tech is the better team. Just in the last 8 games, Texas Tech is a 95, West Virginia is a 79. During the season, West Virginia was an 84, and Texas Tech was a 92. You play numbers. You don't play team names. You play numbers. Now, West Virginia has done well on the road. They're 7-3 against the spread on the road. But what I can't do here is ignore the fact that I'm getting 12.5 when I make the game about 9 or 9.5. I have to take the extra 3 points. I think the number is just too big. It's a numbers play.
And here's another thing that I like here with West Virginia, or at least taking their side. Again, nothing to play for Texas Tech, but look who their next opponent is just 2 days later.
Okay, who's
Houston.
That? Oh, well, there you go.
At home.
Perfect.
So
perfect.
Which game do you think they care about?
No, that's an excellent point, because they played Houston earlier. No, that's okay.
No, they did, and they upset Houston.
Yep. They did.
So they know Houston's going to come into town.
As a 9-point dog, they won by 2 on the road. Yep. That's a really big game. You're right about that. Perfect scenario for West Virginia plus 12.5 or 12. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Houston, that's the next game at 2:00. There are 9, and that spread has gone from 7.5 to 9.5 over the past couple of hours over Iowa State. So Houston has won 5 straight. They've covered 3 straight. Don't forget, we had them last week in the game against Arizona on the road. Iowa State, meanwhile, 4-1 straight up, 4-0-1 against the spread, all time against Houston. That's been since 2008 to 2024, keeping in mind that, most of those games, those were just, who knows who was playing. Last year, they split. But get this, Houston won the game in the regular season. Then they go to the tournament, the Big 12 tournament. And Iowa State, this is the last time these two teams have played, Iowa State beat Houston by 28 points as a 5-point dog in the tournament. So that was the last time these two teams met. So you can imagine Houston might be out for blood.
What's the number on this?
It's 9.5 now, up from 7.5 just a couple hours ago. Iowa State's won 4 straight, all by double digits, by a combined 67 points. So they're playing fine. Not that any of the wins were big wins. They were not great opponents, but they're just, doing what they need to do. So yeah, what do you think about the line bumping from 7.5 to 9.5?
You're probably looking at that revenge factor off that 28-point loss
from last year. Yeah, absolutely. Tournament loss too. Yep.
And we know how Houston. I mean, they're brutal. They're brutal. I have trouble with this because I made it exactly that number, and
okay.
I'm going to try to find an angle here to play. but it's not obvious to me.
Yeah, the thing with Iowa State that I'd be concerned with, if we go into the tournament, we're looking at the brackets, is they don't have a whole lot of big marquee wins this year. So they've feasted on mostly okay teams. I think they've had like Kansas is they split with them, but nowadays that doesn't mean anything anymore.
The fact that this game has gone from 7-9 and it's early, because the average person doesn't play 2-3 days early on these games. It's only the sharps. I have to respect that move. The sharps are saying the favorite's the right side.
Yeah,
And
I guess
I can see what they're looking at, and the revenge on top of it. Home games versus road games, the ratings very skewed towards Houston. The last 8 games, it's very skewed towards Houston. And that revenge factor that's enough to move the line through 2 points. The sharps took the right number. They laid the 7.5. I'm not going to follow them. I'm not going to buck them either. I'm just going to watch.
Okay. The 4:00 game, speaking of Kansas, that line is now 15.5. The only reason I'm bringing this game up is because Mark Lawrence put together one of his shorts, which is available here on the channel. And actually, I think he did on the channel. Yeah. Because he talked about the fact that it was either the short or he mentioned it somehow. But he talked about how Kansas is, because he was mentioning how they got blown out by BYU. And he went over Bill Self's history. Whenever Kansas gets blown out with Bill Self, the next game they usually cover. Again, I don't know exactly what it was, but check it out. He really liked the game because of it. So just figured I'd mention that, even though it's 15.5. Mark says to take Kansas in a game which they probably should clobber Oklahoma State, because Oklahoma State's not a very good team anyway. Okay.
Yeah, they could be a little mad.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Speaking of BYU, this is a late game on Saturday night. BYU, they had themselves a lot of fun the last couple of games against the Kansas teams, blowing out both Kansas State and Kansas. Now they're on the road, and they're taking on Arizona, who beat BYU just a few weeks ago by 11 as a 3-point road dog. Now they're a 7.5-point home favorite against the Cougars. And BYU, again, they've won 3 straight up ATS. They've won 7 out of 9, 6-2-1 ATS in those 9. Arizona also 7-2 straight up ATS last 9. So what do you think about spread? Big spread, but it's a road game now for BYU, not a home game.
Absolutely like BYU taking the points. Absolutely. Okay. Without question. That's way too big a number. Arizona looks a little bit off their food. They were favored at Kansas State. They lost the game. They took 2 points at home to Houston, lost by 4. That was not a bad game because Houston's a very tough team.
Yep.
They went to Baylor and they were a dog and they won that game. That was a good game. But winning on the road, I like the revenge factor. I'm going to take the extra points here. I think that number is a little bit high. A little bit high. What do you see in the number?
It's 7.5.
Yeah, making it somewhere around maybe 5.75 or 6. It's in that range. I take a little extra, then you add in a little revenge issue. And if I'm looking at the last 8 games, last 4 games, I'm seeing a little bit of an edge. I think this game could be a 4-point game at the end. I like the dog.
Yeah, I mean, I think BYU. I mean, yeah, it's at home, but heck, I mean, those are 2 convincing wins. So,
yeah,
They were impressive in those games, and this could be the start of them putting something together here
Oh,
because
they've got good athletes, good coaching. I mean, yes, that definitely could, and definitely a revenge issue. Yes, absolutely.
in that game, that's the late game. I'm just going to look one more time to see if I notice any line changes there. Nope, still 7.5. Okay, now we have that George Mason Virginia VCU game. Might have to wait till the end of the broadcast to see if the line pops up before the end of the show. Let me
Yeah,
see
I
if
haven't seen. I haven't seen a number on that either.
oh, the line's out. What do you think it should be?
Well, let me go find the game. Hold on.
No, tell me what you think the line should be.
Well, I have to look at the. I don't have these things in my brain.
Oh, come on, you should.
There's 45,000 games.
All
I don't even.
right, I'll give you some time.
I don't even have it on my sheet.
George
Oh, yeah,
Mason.
there it is. There it is. Hold on. I got it.
No, I'm just gonna
Got
say
it,
George
I got it,
Mason's
I
won
got it, I
14
got
of
it.
15.
I'm gonna make Virginia Commonwealth the favorite, of course, in this game, and I'm going to say it should be 8.
8.5.
Okay, well, I'm close. Not
Oh,
bad. Not bad.
you
Virginia
needed to find time to
Commonwealth.
look for it.
Virginia Commonwealth has covered 11 of their 15 games at home. That's a very, very strong record. It's almost 3-1 covering at home. They're 88 to 78 home rating, 92. Let me see. Have they played this year yet?
No,
Okay. And you got George Mason, which
but they
is,
have won 4 straight against George Mason.
yeah. This is the one we played last week, and I laid the 4, and I only won by 1. I lost with George Mason. It was my only loser last Saturday.
Yeah, they're covering as they've won 14 out of 15, but they've only covered 8 out of those 15.
Yeah, they don't score enough to cover any big numbers, and then there's several of their games are only in the 50s offensively. I mean,
Yeah, these are 2 of the top defensive teams in the country.
correct.
So
Which leads now. The only thing is, you look at Virginia Commonwealth has gone over 6 of their last 7 games. So,
and VCU's 13-0 at home, straight up, of course.
I'm thinking that this is too big of a number for what could be a slowdown game.
Yeah, that is a lot of points for a defensive battle.
I could make it 8, but I when you look at the pace of the game, it doesn't make sense. So easily could see the game being shorter that because of the pace, not because of they're more talented or not. But I would say I'd lean to the dog only because of the pace. Because the number is exactly what I made it. So there's no real edge, but I lean to the dog because of the pace.
VCU, as you can see, they're a much better spread team, 16-8 on the season. They've won 11 out of 12, and they're 9-2-1 ATS in their last 12. These are 2. It's not a surprise that these 2 teams are at the top of this conference because these are 2 veteran teams. VCU's top 5 scorers are seniors. George Mason, their top 8 scorers are all upperclassmen, including 6 seniors.
You get more consistency that way.
So it's going to be, hopefully we'll see these 2 teams in the championship game of the Atlantic 10, and who knows? I don't know if one of them will get lucky enough to get into the tournament as an at-large, but this is first place against second place in the Atlantic 10, and yet it is a big 8.5
They've
point
got
spread.
great rating. I mean, great records: 19-6 and 20-5, straight up. So I mean, they're good records. They've had good years.
All right, so here's the ACC. This is next. A very bad conference this year.
Yes.
And Clemson and SMU were taken on 4 o'clock tomorrow. 3rd place against 5th place. But to me, there's no contest here as far as who's the better team. To me, it's clearly Clemson. And look, they're 1.5 on the road. It's actually down from 2.5. So some of the money's come back to SMU. SMU has played nobody this year. Nobody. Because the ACC, all the teams they've played and beaten in the ACC are all the bad teams. And there's a lot of bad teams in the ACC this year. They've won 6 out of 7, covered 5 out of 7, all against non-tourney teams. They're also 0-3 straight up and against the spread versus tourney teams this year by 57-point margin. So if they beat Clemson on Saturday, it's going to be the first win against a tourney team all season. Meanwhile, one of their guards, Kevin Boopy Miller, has missed his last 2. He's one of their top rotation players, so he may not play in this game. Keep an eye on that. Clemson, meanwhile, is playing their best ball of the year. They've won 9 out of 10, covered 8 out of 10. Beat Duke, of course, last time out. We had that one as well.
Yeah, we did.
So I'm sticking with Clemson. As long as they're playing hot basketball like this, I'm sticking with them.
What's the number?
1.5.
It's a number. It's a scary number. I lean to Clemson. There's definitely lean to them, but I'm not in love with it. I lean to it. Again, it's a number issue. I'd take 2.5 or 3, but 1.5 doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, the only edge that SMU has is that, as I said, they haven't beaten anybody. They need the win. They have to have a win against a tourney team, or I don't think they're getting an at-large. So this is, and if you look at the rest of their schedule, this is their, let's see, this is Clemson. So let me switch over to SMU and see what their rest of their schedule, how many tourney teams they may be playing to help them out. Let's see. None of them. Maybe Florida State at the end of the season, but I don't think that's going to help. Even if Florida State squeaks in, they don't care about that. So this is their last chance to have a win against a tournament team, SMU. So that's the edge there. If you like SMU,
well, they're going to have a big supportive crowd here.
Yeah,
they're definitely going to have that.
They've got to get this win. But again, I'm just sticking with Clemson because they're hot.
Clemson is the right side. It's just a wrong number.
Well, you can't expect them to be getting points, can you?
Well, who's the favorite?
Clemson.
By 1?
Yeah, 1.5.
That's the wrong favorite.
I don't know how you could favor SMU in this game, though. I don't know how you do that.
That's just they're in their home. Well, I'm definitely not laying Clemson on the road as a favorite. No, I got to be taking the points. Have to.
Okay.
But if I'm not getting it, I pass. That's why I have a lot of games.
Let's move on let's talk about another one of these ACC teams, the team at the top of the standings.
Well, this is easy.
Easy?
This is easy.
Okay.
This is easy. What's the spread?
It's 10.5.
Duke?
Yeah, well, of course.
It's okay against Illinois.
Yeah. And keep in mind, Duke is 4-3 versus tourney teams this year. 19-0 against non-tourney teams. And Illinois, at this point, is a tourney team.
Greg, can you give me a second? I have to answer something.
Sure. Go
okay,
right
I'll
ahead.
be right back.
Illinois and Duke, what's really good about the microcosm of this game is the fact that Illinois is 8th in the country in offense. So if you look at their overall, I'm not talking points, I'm talking about overall offense efficiency. 8th, Duke 6th in defense. So so you got a good offensive team from Illinois, good defensive team from Duke. I'm not saying either team can't play defense or offense. I'm just saying that that's kind of what you're getting here. Illinois, the only thing that I would be nervous about with Illinois is the fact that they are not playing as good as they would like coming into this game. They're coming off back-to-back losses. They had that loss to Michigan State. We talked about that one last week. We had Michigan State, and Michigan State pulled it off, got the upset. And then they followed that up. They had to go right back pretty much on the road just a couple of days later at red hot Wisconsin. And they got blown out. So now they've got Duke, and you can see the rest of their schedule. They have Michigan and Purdue and Duke. So Illinois, this is a talented team. I don't think there's any way they're not making the tournament. So they're going to win some games here. I don't know. They're beating Iowa at home. They're probably going to beat Purdue at home. But can they beat Duke or Michigan away from home? That's going to be the trick. And also, remember I said Illinois has got a really good offense. How about this? Illinois is number 1 in the country in defensive rebound percentage. So this is why I said this last week when we talked about Illinois. This is a very talented Illinois team. And yet it's a very talented Illinois team. And yet they're in a tough situation. I mean, they're 17-10. They're just a game over 500 in the Big Ten. Not that this is a Big Ten game. And they need to keep getting some wins. But, back-to-back losses. And now they go to Madison Square Garden. What a weird time to have one of these games. In the meat of the conference action. Illinois and Duke in a one-off at Madison Square Garden.
Duke will show their horns here. Illinois is slumped. In my opinion, the 14-point loss to Michigan State tells you a lot. The 15-point, it's just 20 points. It lost by 20, almost 21 points to Wisconsin. This is a big win, but a big win for Duke here. Big win.
All right. Well, look, it's obvious in that respect that if Illinois is just picked the wrong time to possibly go into a bad stretch, then yeah, Duke's capable of blowing them out. If both teams were just coming in, regular part of the season, let's go to Square Garden and play, and I'm getting 10.5. Well, I'm clearly taking Illinois. They're just a very talented team, but they're not playing well right now. So, yeah. So this is a game I'm actually going to go ahead and this is a game we'll disagree with, but I can easily see Duke blowing them out if they keep playing like this, the way they have the last couple of outings. Okay.
Why are we disagreeing? You taking Illinois with the number?
Yeah. Because again, they're really, really desperate for W's. And I still think they're getting into the tournament. And like I said, when you were away, they're going to beat Iowa. I think they'll beat Purdue at home. It's probably all they need to get in the tournament. They're just too good. There's no way they're going to leave Illinois out. But it's not what they think. They got to have that psychological feeling of, hey, we got to do whatever we can. So, if you're an Illinois fan, you're hoping, we lost those games. Let's just regroup. Let's just get going here. They do have one player, a rotation guy that's banged up. He's not, to me though, that's not an excuse. So I'm not gonna lay that out there. That's why we didn't really mention it. But we'll see. Again, if Illinois, we just talked about Oregon. Oregon went through that stretch where they were awful, and it's possible maybe Illinois is going through that too. But we'll find out on Saturday night. Okay, let's now, in the last couple of games we have. We are going to, where are we going next? We're going to go to, we got 2 more here, just 2 more to go. And we've got the WCC rematch. And don't forget, the first time St. Mary's played Gonzaga, we both liked St. Mary's in that one. They were a home dog, and St. Mary's beat Gonzaga. They've won 14 out of the last 15, St. Mary's has. Their only loss during that stretch was 1 point at San Francisco. Gonzaga, meanwhile, has won 7 out of 8. Their only loss during that stretch was to St. Mary's. You've got 2 teams that are At one end, St. Mary's is a very good defensive team. Gonzaga is a very good offensive team. So that's a nice little contrast that these two teams are facing each other, the rivalry. St. Mary's has actually won 3 out of 4 against Gonzaga, including the 2-point dog win we talked about. And Gonzaga, meanwhile, check this out. They're 0-5 straight up and against the spread in their last 5 games when they were a single-digit favorite this year. So not just lost a cover, but lost the game as a single-digit favorite. Anyway, this is a revenge game, but it's also a game in which Gonzaga is a 4.5-point favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and take St. Mary's because I don't know. I think this should be back to that 2.5 number. I know why it's 4.5. They were 2.5 on the road, so they're going to put 4.5 here at home. But St. Mary's beat them, so I think it's showing a little bit of disrespect to up the odds on Gonzaga when St. Mary's has already beaten them this year.
One thing about Gonzaga, man, they burn your bankroll. They just don't cover, and they're always overrated, over talked about. Everybody, this is for years. This is going to be the next champion, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, nobody's saying that this year, so you do wonder if they get into the tournament. But they're just not talented enough this year to do that.
No, they're not.
They don't have those NBA type players that they've had the last 5 or 6 years. Do you have a play on this one?
It's a tough one because you got the revenge, you got the fact that they're home, but man, I mean they've got 6 covers and 11 losses at home against the spread. It's hard to jump on that in a revenge situation.
This is the final home game, by the way, of the season for Gonzaga. So, and 6 of their top 7 players are seniors. So this is a big senior game.
Senior night
for St. Mary's. I mean, for Gonzaga. So you do keep that into play. They were going to have motivation to play this game anyway. So I don't think that's going to matter. If anything, sometimes that can work against you because there's all the distraction of senior night and everybody's there.
The numbers a little bit,
it's a little high to me, 4.5.
I'm going to pass.
Okay.
I don't like it. I'm going to pass.
And the last game, and hopefully the odds are out. It's the last game. They weren't out before, and they're out now. All right. I guess I can ask you if you want to try to pick this odds too.
You've got to tell me the game first.
San Diego State at Utah State. And are we allowed to look at your formula at some point to show everybody what it is, or is that secret?
Well, you can see it.
Well, okay. Well, we'll do that on another show.
See that?
I'd have to. Let me see. Let me get rid of this off the board. Yeah, I can see a little of it. Sure. I mean, I can't really read it because it's too small, but I see all the information. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's something that, again, a lot of people, they might not even know. Well, what the hell is he talking about? Ratings. That you have a rating system.
I have 7 ratings on every team.
Yeah.
7.
So
and I look at this game here.
2 of the best teams in the Mountain West: second place Utah State, third place San Diego State. If you look at this one, Utah State has won 7 out of 9. Their losses were both to the same team, first place New Mexico. So Utah State, meanwhile, they beat St. Mary's earlier this year. They've won 2 out of their last 3 against San Diego State, straight up ATS, including a 1-point win in late December as a 4-point dog at San Diego State. Now they're at home. And this is, you've got a really good defensive. As a matter of fact, check this out. San Diego State is second nationally.
San Diego State played Utah State on December 28th at home, 4-point favorite, and they lost by 1.
Yeah. San Diego State.
Now they're
Let me
going
get
on the
this out.
road.
Let me get this out, and you can go.
What are we
San Diego
getting?
State is second in the nation in field goal percentage defense, while Utah State is second in the nation in field goal percentage offense.
What's the spread?
The spread. What spread do you think it should be?
That's very hard to figure. I mean,
Okay, I can give it.
Basically, it shouldn't be any more than 3 or 4.
It's 4.5.
I'd have to take the dog.
I don't disagree with you. San Diego State, very good defensive team. They've beaten Creighton. Remember, this is another one of the teams. Now, they've had a good year, so it's not like they've had a good start and a bad ending. But this is a team, San Diego State, that went to one of those tournaments earlier this year and played really well. They beat Creighton and Houston in a tourney, but they couldn't go to the championship game because they lost to Oregon in the second game, and they wound up winning their third game against who they beat in that third game, Houston. So that was a nice little tournament run to start the season. This is what you want to see. You want to get your team, like in the Mountain West, you don't play a lot of great teams outside your conference very often. So they got to play Gonzaga. They got to play all these teams. And historically, San Diego State is a very good tourney team. And they're coming in here winning 7 out of 8.
I mean, Utah State has a much better record, 22-4. I mean, that's incredible. And this is it's all about revenge here to me. San Diego State, they're a rough and tumble team, lost at home by 1, 67-66. I see the same kind of game right here.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a lot of points to be given up.
I don't fault the spread. I just think it's the right side for San Diego State to step up and play a very tough game. However, the numbers don't necessarily support it because they're basically it's the right line.
Yeah, the one team we have not talked about yet on this show, believe it or not, in the whatever we're going on 3 or 4 weeks now, is New Mexico, and they're the best team right now in the Mountain West. So,
yeah.
Again, that's the only team Utah State's lost to during this stretch, and they lost to them twice. So New Mexico is having a really strong year, and we'll see. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. These teams, San Diego State, Utah State, New Mexico, watch out. Come tournament time. These are good teams. So they always do damage. And I think they're going to do it again this coming tournament. So San Diego State, that's the play, 4.5.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that's it. So let's just recap with our picks. All right. Let's see. So I'm going to go through the games. You tell me if you're taking a game, if you're taking anyone here. All right, Wisconsin 8.5.
I got to take Wisconsin.
Okay, I'm going to take him too. All right, Tennessee 1 over Texas A&M.
I'm going to say under.
Under, what is it?
I don't have the number. You got the number.
Oh, okay. Let me see.
I don't know. Because I'm traveling, I don't have enough screens to have all these screens up at one time.
Yeah, you might want to take one of those screens down. You're cutting off a little bit. Let's see. Tennessee. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. I got to go to covers. There it is. And that game is at 1 o'clock. Let me shoot it on up here. There it is. 130.5.
Yeah, under.
Under 130.5 for Jim. I'm not touching the game. All right. West Virginia getting 11.5 from Texas A&M.
Texas Tech.
Okay. I'm going to take West Virginia.
It's not Texas. It's not Texas A&M. It's Texas Tech.
Yeah,
West
you take
Virginia is playing Texas Tech.
correct. Is that who you want? Texas Tech?
No, you said Texas A&M. I corrected you.
Okay. Who do you want?
I am going to how much?
11.5.
I got to take the dog.
I'm taking the dog too, and I'm putting some money on the money line as well. Okay. Mississippi State, 1.5 over Oklahoma.
Well, that's Mississippi State or nothing.
Is that a pick or not?
Yes, Oklahoma's
Okay.
playing terrible.
Okay, it's a pick for me as well. Houston, 9.5 against Iowa State.
I'm going to pass.
Yes, I'm passing as well. Ole Miss, 1-point favorite at Vandy.
I'm going to pass.
Okay, I'm taking Vandy plus the 1. Let's go to George Mason VCU. That spreads 8.5 VCU. VCU, yeah.
I don't remember what. Did I have a side? Well,
we were siding towards George Mason because it's a lot of points for a defensive matchup.
Yeah.
But I'm taking George Mason, but I don't know if you're going to take the game or not.
I don't think so. I'll pass.
Okay. Clemson, 1.5 at SMU. You know which way I'm going.
I do know what you're going. I'm going to go the other way.
Okay. Let's see. Don't forget Kansas. That's March play against Oklahoma State. Kentucky is getting 8.5 from Alabama.
I'm taking the dog.
So am I. And I'll probably throw a couple bucks on the money line too. St. Mary's Gonzaga 4.5.
I'm going to take the dog.
Okay, so am I. San Diego State getting 4.5 from Utah State.
Yes.
Okay, so am I. The last 3. Missouri, a 1-point favorite at Arkansas.
I'm going to take Arkansas.
Oh, so am I. This is the one we're going to disagree on. You're taking Duke 10.5 against Illinois.
Right.
And I'm taking Illinois. And BYU getting 7.5 from Arizona.
Definitely BYU.
Me too.
Best play.
Ooh, I like that. So there you go. That means I'll go ahead and throw a couple of bucks myself on the money line too. All right, so there you go. That's it for another Friday for Saturday's games. Don't forget, next week it'll be our last week of really talking about nothing but regular season games, because after that we'll be introduced to conference tournament action. And that's going to be a lot of fun, sprinkling in with some remaining regular season games to end the season. So, Jim, appreciated as well your time as well, and have a safe trip back home from snowy Cleveland.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. We'll see everybody real soon. Don't forget to check out Kevin is going to start his hockey videos on Tuesday. He'll be doing them every Tuesday and Thursday. And also, don't forget, we've got videos already in there for horse racing tomorrow at Oaklawn Park, and the NASCAR coverage for the race on Sunday. And we'll see everybody again also, hopefully early next week. Jim and I are going to try to do one of these shows early next week, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. Otherwise, we'll see everybody again here next week.